Hello everyone. Welcome back to the Cinderella phenomenon. I almost said the princess phenomenon because we're about princesses. So what happened in the last episode was we went to town to investigate Rod's curse. We found out a lot about it, including the fact that he saved Fiorica's life and Desmond ended up getting the credit for it. And he wanted to become a prince in order to get her back. It didn't work. But now he is a prince and lost his voice. And also, apparently everyone is shipping Lucette and Rod together in the palace. It's kind of hysterical. Even her mom, even his mom ships it, which is awesome. But anyways, later that day, as I am waiting outside the throne room for Emmeline to finish one of her classes, two maids walk towards me and stop in front of me. Lucette, isn't it? What is it? I have already finished all of my tasks for the day. Oh, I'm sure you have. Probably rushed through all of them so that you could hang around the prince and princess tonight. The head housekeeper's been giving you a lighter load so you can afford the time to play around, I blink at them, confused. I have no idea what you're talking about. Don't play dumb. All the servants know what you've been doing. Just because you're Princess Emmeline's personal maid doesn't make you better than the rest of us. I'd be careful not to get too big for your boots, Lucette. Are you threatening me? What if we are? Then I'd be very disappointed in you. Oh, then I'd be very disappointed in you. I would be very disappointed in you. It's just so... flames wreathing on the side of my face. Princess Emmeline. Emmeline moves to stand beside me, a disapproving expression on her face. I did not expect such petty cruelty from the two of you. You should be ashamed of yourselves. Your Highness. You really do have a talent for getting yourself in trouble. Rod. Rod pauses briefly, his eyes meeting mine for a second before he looks at the maids. Don't you have better things to do than bully my sister's maid? We apologize, Your Highness. We'll be on our way. The two maids run off. Emmeline turns to look at me. Are you okay? I'm about to answer when I notice that Rod is abruptly walking away from us. Goodbye! I frown at his back. He had only just started being nice to me, and now he is back to acting if I can speak English. He had only just started being nice to me, and now he is back to acting as if I do not exist. Maybe if I get the crud off of my glasses, I will be able to see and thus speak more clearly. What did I do? Emmeline puts her hands on my back and gently pushes me forward. You wanted to ask him something, right? I could see it in your eyes. Emmeline smiles as she pushes the door to the throne room open. I have a few more questions to ask my teacher. I'll be a while. But she disappears into the throne room before I can finish. I glance down the hallway Rod just disappeared down, and then back at the throne room. My thoughts whirl together in a vague mess until I make my decision. Wait! At the sound of my approaching footsteps, Rod turns and looks at me. He scowls, but does not say anything. Well, saying nothing is not going to help. Tell him off. He's being a dick again. The words spill out of me before I can even think on them. What have I done now to make you angry with me? Nothing. He turns away and I glare as I follow closely behind him. You expect me to believe that? You can at least look at me when I'm talking to you. I reach out a hand to his elbow and pull him back so he is facing me. Rod! The words die in my throat when I see the expression on his face. Oh, his face is red and he refuses to look me in the eye. My surprise causes me to release him. Rod quickly turns around and begins to walk away. Friggin' Cinderella! I'm left to stare dumbly after him. What is wrong with him? Normally he is not so afraid to speak his mind. I frown as I feel a dull ache throbbing somewhere deep in my chest. What is this? Why do I feel so sad? Normally, Rod's distance does not make me feel like this, and yet now, am I really so sad that he does not want to speak with me? I shake my head and take a deep breath to still my mind. It is better not to think about it. You two are kind of absolutely hopeless, you know that, right? The ball! A ball to crown them all. It is the day of the ball, and I am waiting for Emmeline to finish her last dance rehearsal. The lesson was over an hour ago, but Emmeline remains here to continue practicing the steps. Meanwhile, I am preoccupied with thoughts of Rod's curse. I cannot believe that Rod traded his voice for a title. So the reason the king was able to find Ophelia was because of Rod. It is a little difficult to wrap my head around the implications, but one thing bothers me. Rod told me why he has the curse, but he gave no explanation as to how to break it. How did it go in the original fairy tale? True love's kiss? That's usually how it is. Emmeline finishes up the last steps of her routine before walking over to me. I hand her the glass of water I was holding for her. Thank you, Lucette. Emmeline must notice my curiosity because she stops to look at me quizzically. Is something the matter? I read a little bit of that fairy tale, but never finished it. Can you tell me the whole story of the Little Mermaid? The Little Mermaid? Emmeline takes a seat on one of the chairs bordering the throne room and gestures for me to take the one opposite her. Telling a fairy tale is always a good way to wind down. Once upon a time, there was a mermaid that fell in love with a handsome prince. One day, when she swam to the surface of the ocean to find him, she saw that the prince was celebrating his birthday on the grandest ship in the kingdom. The little mermaid was captivated by the human party and stayed to watch. Then suddenly, a violent storm hit, and the prince was thrown from the ship into the ocean. The little mermaid saved the prince and took him safely to shore, but she could not stay for long. She eventually had to return to the ocean and leave him on land. This is similar to Viorica's rescue. The little mermaid was so in love with the prince that she went to see a witch who offered to trade her a potion that would turn her mermaid's tail into legs. They struck a deal. The mermaid would sacrifice her beautiful voice for legs so that she could live with the prince on land. So in Rod's case, he traded away his voice to become a prince. However, the sea witch gave the little mermaid a warning. She said that if she wasn't able to make the prince fall in love with her, there would be consequences. Consequences? Yes. Namely, if the prince fell in love and married someone else, the mermaid's heart would break, and she would dissolve into sea foam. That's a problem. I cannot help but recoil. My expression must betray my horror because Emmeline quickly shakes her head. There's no need to be worried. Rod has said that his curse is different from the fairy tale. And do you believe him? Do you actually believe him? Emmeline shrugs helplessly as she puts down her now empty glass of water. The fairytale curse always twists the original fairy tale, right? Besides, it's not as if Rod traded his voice for legs, and I've never heard of a cursed person that dies because they cannot break their curse. That may be true, but Emmeline does not know what Rod traded his voice for. She does not know that he did it to become a prince for Viorica. Rod is already hiding things from her. Is it possible that Rod will die the day Viorica marries Desmond? Is it Desmond or Desimond? Later that day, I find Rod in the dining hall. He appears to be inspecting the seating arrangements for the night's banquet. He glances up briefly to look at me before returning his attention to the placards with the guests' names on them. What is it? I have been looking for you all morning. I'm distracted from what I am about to say when I notice Rod switching the position of two placards. I frown as I catch the name on one of them. He is moving Viorica's place at the table. Is he trying to make sure she sits as far away from him as possible? Surely you have better things to do than stay in here. What happens if you cannot break your curse? Rod's movements stutter before he shakes his head sharply. That is something you do not need to know. This feels like an important one. I mean, getting angry with him the last time got like a woo-doo-doo-doo thing, but it's always hard to know with him because it's not like we got any new information out of him. Though being silent, definitely not. For some reason, getting angry at him just doesn't feel like a good decision to me right now. And like half the time I decide on what's funny, but this is a little bit too serious for that. So, I can't cut off the episode yet and think about it. I'm just gonna plead with him, even though that does feel a little pathetic. Something aches deep in my chest at Rod's coldness. Please. Rod startles so strongly that he almost drops the placard he's holding. Please tell me. We have been partners for months now, but I've barely... Yes, I know it is an unusual partnership and that most of our helping each other has been subtle, but I am only one good deed away from breaking my curse, while you seem to be no closer to breaking your curse than when we started. I will do whatever I can to help you with your curse, Rod. So please let me help you. Hey, we got it! Silence falls. Moments later, Rod sighs and looks away from me. Some unspeakably sad emotion shines through his eyes. Even if I wanted your help, Lucette, there's nothing you can do. Dread settles in the pit of my stomach at Rod's words. Could I be right? Will Rod actually die if he does not manage to break his curse? Emmeline told me the story of the Little Mermaid. She said that the mermaid dies if the prince marries someone else. Rod, when Viorica marries Desmond, they do change the spelling! You guys can confirm it for me, right? Desmond versus Desmond? They switch it up sometimes. I'm not wrong. I'm not wrong. My mind isn't playing tricks on me. Ha! Will you... My voice trails off when I hear the sound of the door behind us. Is it Ophelia or the king? Rod rushes forwards and grabs me before I can glance back at the door. Why? Ow. I become aware of a weight holding me down to the floor in a very compromising position that's not going to help any of the rumors whatsoever. The impact of the ground against my head blurs my vision, making it impossible for me to see what is happening at first. Am I underneath the dining table? I struggle to try and sit up, but the weight pushes down on me again, forcing me to be still. And then they were roommates. Quiet. Rod? Why did he push me underneath the table? I am about to ask him aloud when the sound of footsteps silences me. I cannot help but remember what Sir Mithros was saying about rumors. If Rod and I were seen alone together by the servants, the rumors will no doubt get worse. But why is Rod doing this? I stay quiet as the people that enter the dining hall begin to talk. How strange for this place to be empty at this time of day. There's a pause, and then another voice speaks up. You better have good news for me, Mithros. Sir Alcaster and Sir Mithros? Ooh, plot! Rod's hands tighten on my shoulders. Everything is as you requested, Sir Alcaster. There should be no issues. There better not be. You've disappointed me before, Mithros. I would be careful not to try my patience again. Yes, Sir Alcaster. Sir Mithros sounds oddly subservient. But why? The two of them are both ranked equally, and neither of them should have to answer to anyone other than the king. unless Sir Alcester truly is the witch and is forcing Sir Mithros to obey him with a spell. Wait a few minutes after I leave. We should not be seen together. I do not hear Sir Mithros respond, but I can hear Sir Alcester leaving the room. Sir Mithros sighs out, but is otherwise silent when he leaves the room after a few moments. I exhale fully as the door finally closes behind Sir Mithros. This is bad. I was so engrossed in Sir Alcester and Sir Mithros' conversation that I only just now realized that Rod is hovering over me. Oh, he's embarrassed. Hey, are you alright? Are you hurt? You look a little... Rod suddenly pauses as he notices our positions. He stares at me for a few moments, eyes wide. Yeah, you did that. You did that. He scrambles out from underneath the dining table, and by the time I do the same, he is standing far away from me, his gaze fixed on the wall. He is bright red. It would be funny if I weren't sure I was the same color. Rod clears his throat. It seems that Sir Alcester really is the witch if he has the ability to make Sir Mithros obey him. Lady Parfait should be told immediately. Rod turns on his heel to leave the dining room. Rod, wait! What? This is urgent, Princess. I can't just... When Viorica marries Decimond, will you die? Rod pauses for a moment, but I can tell from his pained expression that he will not speak. You're running out of time, Rod. My eyes flit between Sebi and Rod. What does that mean? Nothing. He turns away from me once again and starts walking away. Rod? There must be something in my voice that makes Rod stop, because he turns to look at me. Please stop running away from this. What would knowing the answer achieve, Lucette? Though Rod's words are harsh, his tone is soft. There's nothing anyone can do. Leave it alone, Lucette. It's for the best. I cannot help but get mad at Rod's dismissive tone. I move toward him, frowning. How could you say something like that? You are not the only person that will be affected if you keep refusing to do anything to break your curse. Can you imagine what your death would do to your sister? To your mother? Losing you would destroy them. Rod's face is suddenly inches away from mine. He places his hands on the wall behind me, caging me in. Another compromising position brought to you by Rod. His face is flushed with anger, but the look in his eyes is tormented. I can't help but imagine that Rod is like about 3 inches shorter than Lucette, because that's hysterical to me. You've got this smaller boy trying to intimidate the tall princess. It's just like, hello, small child. The look in his eyes is tormented. I'm sorry. This is a really dramatic scene, but just that mental image. My family has been dealing with the consequences of my actions for the majority of my life. Don't think that I don't know what effect my curse has on the people closest to me. Besides, I don't want to involve you in this too. His voice is a whisper, but I can still hear his words. Rod. Rod pushes away from me and stalks off as I stare after him. He still says that, but then he still does nothing to try and break his curse. I do not understand him at all. What is stopping him? Later that evening, and with that dramatic exit, I will catch you all in the next one, so thank you for watching and bye-bye!